is the case of Ben Renick. Ben Renick was born on August 4th, 1987, in my hometown of St. Louis, Missouri. He was the son of Frank and Charlene. He grew up on a rural property with his family in New Florence, Missouri, and he shared quite the close bond with his brother, Sam. Ben enjoyed playing the drums. He liked collecting horror movie props, which kind of scared me a little. I can only imagine like a giant ghost face in someone's bedroom, and it just nightmares. So more than anything, Ben's life was about his family, and he really cherished the time that he spent with his wife and their children. When he passed away, he was 29, and he had made a career out of a hobby. Ben was a snake breeder who dealt with rare and exotic snakes. Ben actually became quite a prominent figure in the snake industry after making a name for himself for breeding what they call designer pythons. He would typically sell his pythons for upwards of $20,000 a piece. Ben had started his interest in snakes at an early age and started Renick Reptiles in 2010. And he reportedly sold his snakes to buyers all over the world, from the UK to Japan. Sorry, I'm still trying to recover from whatever Sean shared with me, so I'm a little wheezy. Ben married Lynne Jo Catlin in April of 2014, and the two of them had a daughter that they named Emilia. Now, Ben and Lynne had met as teenagers, and they had reconnected in 2011, and they hit it off right away. Their relationship got really serious really quickly, and they moved in together within the first year of dating, which is fast for some people. The couple also raised a son named Matthew that Lynne had from a previous relationship, and Ben was a doting father to his two children. Now, Lynne, unlike myself, found Ben's passion interesting. I hate snakes. She would work day and night helping Ben with his snakes. She would handle them. She would clean them. She would sort them. Braver girl than I. And in 2017, Ben made a $1 million deal to sell some of his pythons and anacondas. And at that point, Lynne and Ben opened a second business. It was a day spa called Ascensia. Yeah, there's no D, Shannon. What? Ascensia Spa Incorporated. And by the time of the incident that we're going to talk about, the spa was struggling financially. Lynne oversaw this spa, and Facebook messages after Ben's death would show that they did argue quite a bit about finances. He told her that she was backed up on loan payments, on the rent, and on paying her staff. About 3 years into their marriage, Lynne starts to be unfaithful to Ben. There is proof that there were at least 2 affairs in their marriage, but sheriff's deputies are called to the scene. This is a snake breeding facility with more than 3,000 snakes, and there is a man on the floor laying in his own blood. So detectives thought a deadly snake was on the loose, and they set out to look for this missing reptile. They are holding shotguns in their hands. They've got their guns out, and you can really just feel the anxiety among everyone there. No one knew where the killer could be coiled or lurking. But while examining Ben's body, the coroner makes a pretty surprising discovery. Ben's body, lying face down, hid the true cause of his death. Ben had not been bitten by a giant snake. Ben had been shot 8 times, one of them at very close range. Coroner Dave Colbert arrived and took a closer look around, and he found shell casings. He said, "When I saw that shell casing on the shelf above his head, I knew this was not a snake. This was something much more heinous." But his brother Sam wondered who would have wanted Ben dead. A Missouri State Highway Patrol detective had the same question when he spoke with Ben's wife, Lynne. He asked her, "Could you see anyone you know being upset with Ben to the point where this might have happened?" And Lynne said, "No." Both Lynne and Sam were cooperative in their initial interviews with police. But the Missouri State Highway Patrol investigator asked, "Are you willing to submit to a shotgun or not shotgun, a gunshot residue test?" Sam said, "Anything you want, you got it." Sam said he understood why the police would first focus on them, and he told investigators he could never imagine Lynne being involved. He just didn't think that she would be capable of something like that. Lynne also agreed to a gunshot residue test, but in her one-on-one interview with the detective, she made quite a startling claim. She said Sam might have had motive to kill his own brother. Almost, or just 2 weeks after Ben's death, Lynne was prepared to sell the 72-acre Renick property. She was also set to inherit a $1 million life insurance policy. Investigators learned that she was the beneficiary of this life insurance policy, and witnesses told police that she definitely called the company just days after his death to find out when she would be getting the money. Lynne Renick was interviewed by investigators 6 times. On October 5th, 2017, the Missouri State Highway Patrol administered a polygraph, and they informed Lynne that she failed it. But investigators just didn't have any hard evidence to prove that she murdered Ben, and she walked away. The investigation into Ben Renick's death went cold for nearly 3 years, until unexpectedly someone came forward with everything that the Missouri Highway Patrol investigators were looking for. It was a man named Brandon Blackwell. He had met Lynne online, and he was the very man that she was hooking up with the week that Ben was murdered. Only a year and a half after Ben was killed, Brandon and Lynne had a child together, but Lynne alleged that Brandon had become physically threatening and the two had broken up. Lynne had gotten an order of protection against him, and he was then charged with violating that order and stalking her, charges that he denies. So he's in a jam, he's in jail, and he's looking to make a deal. So he goes to the police and he says, "This is what happened." And in fact, his story starts a couple of weeks before Ben was shot. He brings to light a disturbing plot to kill Ben, and it involved multiple people. The authorities learn at this point, or relearn, I guess, Lynne's spa business was struggling financially, and the motive was money. Lynne enlisted the help of her employee, a woman named Ashley Shaw, and her ex-boyfriend, a man named Michael Humphrey, to kill Ben. Now later, Ashley and Michael do cooperate with authorities to help provide a clearer picture of what happened. Ashley and Michael told the police that Lynne told them that Ben was sexually abusing her. In the beginning, Ashley and Lynne started thinking of ways to get rid of Ben, and they had even tried to kill him by giving him a poisoned protein shake. Ashley had given Lynne 15 Percocet to put into it. Now, it did make Ben violently ill, but it didn't kill him, and he had no idea that he was poisoned. So at this point, Ashley and Lynne are not devious enough to come up with some way to kill Ben, so Lynne brings Michael on board, and they come up with this plan. So here's how it goes. Ashley stayed at the spa with Lynne's cell phone, and Michael and Lynne drive to the breeding facility on June 8th, 2017. This cold case was blown wide open, and on January 16th, 2020, the cops make their move. Lynne Renick and Michael Humphrey were arrested and charged with the murder of Ben Renick. But their loved ones and friends say they never saw it coming. Sam Renick said it took them years to find out that Lynne was lying and living like a double life. He said if you look up the word sociopath, you'll see Lynne's picture right there with it. But still, investigators needed someone on their side. So they arrest Ashley, and they quickly let her know what her future Lynle's going to jail. They're going to prison for first-degree murder. In exchange for leniency, Ashley turned on her one-time boss, starting with the toxic ingredients in Lynle's venomous smoothie. Ashley would then tell the police that Lynle told her that Ben was abusing her. According to Ashley, after the shooting, Lynle claimed Michael was the trigger man, but she says a few days later, Lynle changed her story. Ashley now claimed Lynle confessed to pulling the trigger. Ashley said, "No," Lynle said, "Oh no, once we got there, I was fine to do it. And so he handed me the gun, and I did it." The Missouri State investigator said, after the murder, did she even seem remorseful? And Ashley replied, "Never." Sam Renick said it took a lot of time just to process, the lies that we were given by Lynle. In late 2021, Sam Renick was bracing himself for the trials of his brother's alleged killers. And he said his biggest concern was keeping his composure the whole time. So first up, Lynle's old boyfriend, Michael Humphrey. The prosecution said Lynle fired the gun and he was just in on the plan. The prosecutor said not only was he in on the plotting, but he provided the weapon, so he helped. But that murder weapon has not been recovered. Michael's defense argued that he had been lured to the snake farm by Lynle, who claimed she wanted protection while she went to ask Ben for a divorce. Lynle had then surprised him, pulled out the gun, and shot her husband. The jury didn't believe Michael's story of being just an innocent spectator, and after deliberating for just 5 hours, they convicted him of first-degree murder. Sam Renick said, "Lynle is a manipulator, and I truly believe she manipulated him right to where he is right now." So then, facing life behind bars, Michael Humphrey changes his story. He is convicted, and he agrees to cooperate with the state in hopes that he might be able to parole out eventually. He now admits, "Yes, I provided the gun, and I'll tell you where to find it if you let me off easier." It is in his current girlfriend's mother's attic. So with the murder weapon in hand, jurors in Lynle's upcoming trial would have to answer one unresolved question. Who pulled the trigger? The prosecution in Lynle's trial painted her as cold-blooded as one of her husband's snakes, a killer who shot Ben and then went about her daily routine as if it didn't even matter. I guess I got my timeline wrong. After Ben was murdered, she goes to the school, picks up the children, drives them back to the place where she knows she's going to find their father's dead body because she killed him. The defense counters by saying that while Lynle lied and cheated on Ben, that doesn't make her a killer. She's planning a divorce, not a murder, they said. So they pointed the finger at the man already convicted of murdering Ben Renick. Michael Humphrey took it upon himself, acting completely independently, to take Ben's life himself. But Lynle's employee and confidant, Ashley Shaw, is now the prosecution's star witness, and she swears Michael and Lynle were full partners in crime. Ashley says after the murder, Lynle came back to the spa, not for a massage, but to wash away her sins. She goes back to the spa and she tells Ashley to help her take a shower, to scrub her body and hands very, very well. And then Ashley tells the jurors what Lynle told her about what really happened to Ben Renick that day. She said Michael got too nervous and didn't want to do it, so he and the sole beneficiary to that life insurance. And so they just kind of took it all out on her. During her testimony, Lynne admitted to lying to the police initially. She said, "I lied a lot, and I understand how this looks. I stuck with that story, and I never let go of it. I don't know how to fully express that I never wanted my husband dead." Despite her claims of having nothing to do with Ben's death, she was convicted of second-degree murder in December of 2021. In January of 2022, then around 33 years old, she was sentenced to 13 years for murder. 13 years for Ben Renick's life. Jurors never said why they chose such a seemingly light punishment. But 6 weeks later, Sam would tell the court that the sentence itself was an injustice to his family and his brother's memory. He said, "I beg the common person to watch the trial and ask themselves if my brother's life was worth only 13 years. 13 years is why I'm here today." And he would recount that hideous day that changed everything. Sam Renick said, "The web of devastation travels far and spared no one. She put their children through this experience. Here I was, covered in my brother's blood, attempting to comfort the children, despite them asking me if their daddy is dead." Sam's frustration at the sentencing seemed to be shared by the judge, but by Missouri law, he could not increase Lynne's punishment. Judge Crane said, "You're awfully lucky, ma'am. You ought to get out when you're in your 40s. And my 40s weren't too bad. I hope you don't kill again." That's it. And he stood up and left. Ben Renick had created an Eden for serpent lovers, but it was people, not a snake, that destroyed his paradise. A friend of his family named Dave McKenna said, "You can reduce it to a story of greed, and it may be as simple as that. Greed that left a bloody wake, children and a brother determined to carry on." Sam Renick said, "The kids lost their father, my babies and Ben's babies, and I'm here to take care of them for the rest of my life." And around the world, wherever reptiles coil, slither and slide, the loss of a superstar is still felt, with the loss of Ben Renick. This case made me so sad. And once again, it's another one of those cases where money